I never anticipated a minimal wage retail job would be the location where my whole feeling of safety shattered in half. I was just attempting to get out of a difficult period in my life at the time. One breakup, one eviction, and one busted automobile, all within the same 4 months. I urgently needed a work, and so I landed up at Hillside Market, a mid-sized grocery store situated between a nail salon and a laundromat, the kind of place where the automated door wheezed every time it opened, and the air always smelt vaguely like floor cleaner and oranges. Before I even touched a shelf, they seated me in the tight back office for onboarding. You know, corporate-approved videos with a happy man who has never worked a day on a stock floor narrating them. It played on this dusty old TV that buzzed like it was dying. The narrator advised against confronting a shoplifter. The most important thing is your safety. Let them take the merchandise. Call law enforcement. I recall reclining back on that noisy metal chair thinking, yeah, no kidding. I wasn't about to throw myself into a fist fight for a bag of cat food. However, a foolish and obstinate part of me knew that I would want to act like a more cop action hero if I ever witnessed someone stealing. Until the time comes, we all believe we are more resilient than we actually are. But I kept reminding myself, this corporation wouldn't remember my name or a sympathy card. After the film concluded, the training manager, this wiry guy named Beck, strolled in holding a clipboard like it was part of his body. You get all that? He inquired. Yeah, don't be a hero, I replied. Beck grinned. Exactly. Heroics don't come with advantages. I kept saying that over and over in my brain for the following year till the day it was almost insufficient. I picked the night shift since it paid an extra 75 cents an hour. When I started counting quarters to buy petrol, that was a huge amount. To be honest, I enjoyed the quiet clients after 10 p.m. They were strange, to be sure, but stocking shelves without supervisors around felt like breathing room. To co-workers, and I clicked. Ryland, who worked night stock on the weekends and in the deli during the day. Big guy, soft speech, and constant scent like fried chicken. Tessa, a cashier who'd been there 4 years. Once you got to know her, she was pleasant despite being tough as nails. And then there was Lo. He insisted on being called Lo, short for Lel, and claimed that the full name made him sound like an insurance salesman. So no one called him by his first name, not because it was a negative thing. He had a shaven head, a strong radio voice, and was in his mid-40s. He wore fingerless gloves year-round and had this edgy wannabe vigilante aura. Instead of haunting the aisles, he suggested patrolling them. You're visualizing him already. You're probably right. On my first week, he warned me, man, if someone steals on my shift, I'm putting them down. This ain't charity. I recall blinking at him. You know, they tell us not to confront individuals. That's for folks without balls, he murmured. Corporate's scared of lawyers. I'm not. Yes, that's the man. He didn't frighten me, but he irritated me in a manner that only mature men who had something to prove can. It was late October, the Monday before Halloween. Paper pumpkins, phony cobwebs, and a skull whose head kept falling off due to outdated adhesive were among the inexpensive plastic decorations shown in the store. That evening, I was working with frozen items, replenishing pizza and veggie packs. Freezer doors fogged up every time someone opened one, and the air felt colder than usual. Tessa passed by and said, "Power's flickering. A storm is approaching." Outside, thunder rolled like the sky was extending. The wind was pushing trolleys across the lot. That night, the store seemed unsettling, like something was coiled, waiting. Around 10:45 p.m., I spotted her. An older woman, little, emaciated, wearing a long beige coat that had seen better decades. Her grey hair was pinned perfectly, almost old-fashioned, and she used this cane with a rubber stopper that creaked every time it hit the ground. She strolled slowly, examining objects as if they were new to her. At first glance, harmless, someone's grandma, lost or lonely. She took up a jar of applesauce, turned it, put it back, picked up another, put it back. In that informal retail manner, I watched her while I restocked the freezer. You know, don't knock over something I've just encountered. Lo also noticed her. He nudged me. Observe her. That's a swiper if I've ever seen one. Dude, I mumbled. She's about 80 years old. He puffed out his chest as if he was in loss prevention and remarked, old people steal too. I rolled my eyes and resumed working. But then I saw it. The old woman put a tiny tin of anchovies, of all things, into the inside pocket of her coat. It wasn't a major movement. Honestly, if you weren't looking, you wouldn't have noticed. Lo noted. His whole face brightened up like Christmas morning. There it is, he muttered. I was aware of it. I was aware of it. I instantly said, Lo, don't. You know the rules. Let her walk out. Make a call. He chuckled to himself. Relax. I got this. No, you really don't. However, he had already started to move. You know how your entire body stiffens when you see someone do something foolish. I was that person. I knew this was going nowhere good, so I followed him. He approached her directly and spoke loudly enough for 2 owls to hear. Ma'am, going to need you to hand over the anchovies you just stole. She slowly glanced up at him, incredibly slow. Her eyes were not as gentle as those of most elderly people, but they were still pale blue. They seemed dull. No, not dull. Absent, like she was staring through him, not at him. She didn't speak, just gazed. Let's go, Lo said. We'll have a conversation at work. Lo, I grasped his arm. Come on, guy. Don't do this. Let her leave. He abruptly released his arm. Avoid touching me. I'm carrying out my duties. That nearly made me giggle. His work was basically stocking soup cans. The old woman blinked once. Then she reached sluggish, trembling into her coat. I believed she was about to bring out the anchovies. Nope. She produced a long, shiny, well-sharpened kitchen knife with a thick grip. I froze. It wasn't even processed by my head in time for me to yell. She swung, nor wild, nor frenetic, neat, practiced. The blade plunged into Lo's chest, slightly left of his sternum. His eyes snapped awake. He let out this terrible choking sound, not a scream, more like air being pushed out of him. His knees buckled as I grabbed him and shouted, Jesus! Lo, with her face inches from his. The elderly woman leaned forward and said something in a whisper that I didn't understand. It sounded like, not tonight, no more. Sounded like, not tonight, no more. Then she turned and ran, fast, not old lady jog. Quickly, I didn't forget my cane, fast full sprint like a middle-aged athlete coat, flapping behind her. She moved so fast her cane clattered to the floor behind her. What the heck? Tessa screamed. From the end of the aisle as the woman bolted past her. The front doors whooshed open and the woman disappeared into the storm-lit parking lot. Absent, just gone. We were left with Lo collapsing in my arms, gasping, eyes rolling, blood soaking through his shirt. I yelled for someone to call 911. Ryland sprinted over, pressed his hands against the wound, talking fast to keep Lo conscious. Hey, stay with us, big guy. Don't close your eyes. Look at me. The manager on duty was shaking so hard, she dropped her phone twice before dialing. The store turned into controlled pandemonium. The kind when everyone's adrenaline is too high for logic. The ambulance got there in 6 minutes. They stabilized Lo, rushed him out. The cops rolled in shortly after, lights flashing through the downpour. They asked for the footage. We carried them to the office dead silent, save for the hum of the monitors. Here's where it all got weird. The cameras caught everything up, until the very moment the woman stabbed Lo. You can clearly see her. Knife impact blood. Nothing after that. The moment she turns to run, the camera glitches. Not blurry, not static, simply leaps to a vacant aisle, as if she had never gone by. There isn't anyone running out, according to the front door camera. The parking lot cameras, just darkness and rain. One of the officers asked, "Is this a prank? A setup for Halloween?" I shook my head so hard my neck cracked. No, I was right there. She bolted outside. She ran fast. They exchanged looks like they didn't know whether to treat me as a witness or someone hallucinating. But the blood on the floor was real. The knife wound was real. Low, almost dying, was real. He survived barely. The knife had nicked the outer wall of his heart. They said if she'd pushed an inch deeper, he would have bled out before paramedics arrived. He kept asking in the hospital, "Where's the old lady?" Did they catch her? They didn't. There was nothing to catch. No face match, no ID, no trace of a woman that age living within 15 miles of the store. One detective later told me privately, maybe she wasn't as old as she looked, could have been someone disguised. But that didn't explain the quickness or the strength or what she muttered or the way her eyes didn't look alive. I worked at Hillside Market for 7 months following that. Every time an older customer came in, I felt my chest constrict. Every time someone reached into a coat pocket, my palms sweated. It's been years now and I continuously replay that moment. Lowe's silly assurance, the dull fluorescent lights, the gentle creak of her cane, the blade gleaming under our tent sign. Sometimes at night, I swear I hear her voice from behind me. Not tonight, no more. And I don't know what she meant. I don't know who she truly was. I don't know how she vanished. But I do know this. Corporate training was proper. Don't be a hero. Don't confront them. You don't know what they're capable of. And you don't know what they truly are. I never believed a minimum wage job could leave wounds deeper than any physical wound. But here I am, years later, still flinching whenever someone opens a pocketbook to fast. I was a 23-year-old attempting to put my life back together after losing my father before everything fell apart. His death hit me like a cinder brick dropped from a rooftop. Sharp, nasty, abrupt. One moment we were debating about whether the New Orleans Saints would make playoffs. And the next I was getting a phone call from my mum saying he'd collapsed at work. Massive heart attack. Gone before the ambulance even showed up. After that, I temporarily stopped that. Grades declined. Stopped going out. Barely talked. I had the impression that I had been cut off from everything human. I needed money, but working in a grocery store wasn't exactly my ideal. And honestly, I just needed something that forced me to wake up in the morning. That's how I got to Fairview Market, a mid-sized supermarket chain located in a little town outside of Indianapolis. Not flashy, but the people were mainly pleasant, and the customers were tolerable if you avoided the coupon warriors and the strange individuals who begged for fresh meat at 11p. My role, stock associate, or as the store liked to call it, a nightly inventory team member, which basically meant, please destroy your spine for $14.50 an hour, while pretending you care about cereal boxes being perfectly square. Whatever, it paid. That's where I met the guy who transformed my life in the worst possible way. Jax Riley. Riley was one of those people who talked like life owed him something. At 30, he walked as though he had invisible shoulder pads. He would constantly crack his knuckles, as if he wanted everyone to hear him warm up. He wasn't a terrible dude at first, but boisterous, overconfident, a little too anxious to make himself look like the hardest guy in the room. However, he really irritated me, especially once he began referring to himself as Jay the Watchdog, as if he believed himself to be a superhero. Why our mandatory onboarding video? The video was nothing but garbage, poor acting, awful music, and visually like they were from Windows 98. The whole thing basically said, don't run, don't yell, don't challenge customers, don't fight shoplifters, don't be a hero. The narrator said the word protocol more times than anyone should in a 15-minute period. They hammered it into us. If you witness shoplifting, do not engage. Riley rolled his eyes so hard, I thought he'd cause a small earthquake. Bro, he said afterward, punching my arm like we were frat brothers. Ain't no way I'm letting someone walk out with a cart full of crap while I stand around like some Walmart mannequin. Company rules, I muttered. Rules are for people who don't know how to handle themselves. Dude, you stock cereal. So, strength is strength. Shoplifters don't scare me, I sighed. Men like Riley didn't talk, they declared. Everything was an announcement. Still, We got along okay. At least at first. He wasn't evil, just dumb in that very American way, thinking toughness fixes everything. I wish I'd realized sooner how dangerous his need to prove himself would become. Fairview Market was old. Fluorescent lights flickered at least twice a night. The breakroom fridge always smelt like someone forgot tuna salad in it sometime around the Civil War. Half-hour carts had wheels that screamed like badges, but it was familiar, stable, predictable. A decent place for a guy trying to put his life back together. The night crew was a mixed bag. Lark, a gentle giant who looked like he could wrestle a bear but fainted at the sight of needles. Bren, a quiet cashier who always wore headphones, claiming they helped her block out the noise of humanity. Supervisor Hill, a woman in her 60s who could scare a grown man into tears with a single eyebrow raise. We all worked like a dysfunctional family, except Riley. He wanted action, wanted excitement, wanted to protect the store. He was like a dog waiting at the door for a burglar who was never going to. Then I saw her. A woman, mid-70s maybe, short worn blue coat, grey hair tucked under a knitted beanie. She moved slowly, every step careful, like she was afraid the floor might disappear under her. I didn't think anything was off at first. Old folks shop late sometimes. It's quiet, it's peaceful, no crowds, but something in her eyes. I don't know. It's like she wasn't all there. She muttered to herself. Not angry, not sad, just lost. I glanced towards Riley, who was zoning out, leaning on a pallet jack. I whispered, "Hey, be careful. Something feels odd." "My time has come," Riley grinned. He whispered like a drama student. "Dude, chill. Simply observe." The woman explored the shelves, lifting things, reading labels, putting them back. Then she slid a little jar, maybe olives, into her coat pocket. It wasn't covert. Riley grabbed my sleeve and said, "Bro, I got this." "No, you don't. You wait till they leave the store. She ain't even 5 feet. I'm not scared of some granny." I didn't even look around. I swallowed. Okay. Shoplifting. Sad. But not unheard of. I started walking towards the back so I could alert security as protocol said. "Riley, don't." He brushed by me like I wasn't even there. I felt my stomach plummet. I followed, following, heart beating. Riley approached her with the swagger of a man who's watched too many cop programs. "Ma'am," he said loudly, "we need to talk." The woman didn't react at first. "Ma'am," he said again, stepping in front of her cart. "You put items in your pocket. We're going to need you to come with me," she said, her head snapping up, her eyes locked on his face as if she had suddenly remembered who she was. Then something changed. Her expression, hardening like steel formed from molten metal, and I felt the hairs on my arms stand up. She reached into her coat, and instead of pulling out the jar, I hoped she would smile awkwardly, say she forgot, and apologize. Instead, she pulled out a 6-inch fillet knife with a black rubber handle, the kind used by fishermen. I didn't even have time to scream. "Don't you touch me," she growled. Riley froze. He actually looked scared for the first time since I'd known him. "Whoa. Hey, put that down," he stammered, stepping back. "You won't take me back," the woman hissed. "They're watching. They're always watching." Her hand trembled, not from age, but adrenaline or fear or insanity. Then everything happened in a single blink. She lunged. The blade plunged into Riley's stomach. A wet, sickening schlock that I swear I can still hear in my nightmares. Riley made a sound I've never heard from any human. Half scream, half gasp, all terror. He collapsed backward into a rack of chips, sending bags raining down like confetti at the world's worst celebration. I shouted, "Hey, drop it." But she didn't even glance at me. She bolted. And when I say sprinted, I mean that old woman. I put both hands on Riley's wound as he screamed, cried, and begged, his blood soaking my palms, my sleeves, and the floor. "Stay with me, man," I repeated, my voice cracking. "Look at me, Riley. Look at me." "I didn't think," he gasped. "No underscore, you didn't think." She moved like she had rocket fuel in her veins. She tore between aisles, past stunned customers, out the automatic doors, and into the night. He groaned and whispered, "I don't want to die. Over olives. You're not dying. You hear me. You're not. Stay awake." Security ran over, followed by the manager and paramedics. It seemed like an eternity, and I sat in the ambulance until they ejected me from the waiting area. Half the night blurred into a fog of police questions, statements, and replaying the moment over and over in my head like a broken movie reel. The woman was never caught. Cameras showed her entering the parking lot. Then she vanished. No car, no witnesses, nothing. It made no sense. Barely. The blade missed his liver by half an inch. Doctors said, if I hadn't held pressure, he would have bled out in 5 minutes. He eventually woke up. He cried softly, broken, ashamed, fearful. "Man, I'm so damn stupid," he muttered one evening while I was there. I didn't disagree, but I also didn't pass judgment. Trauma humbles people, turns boys into humans. After that, Riley left retail, moved away, got therapy, got quiet, got real. But me, I stayed, and every night after, every time I saw an elderly woman reach into her purse for coupons or tissues or anything at all, my heart would shut down for a second. My hands would shake. My memories would burn, because you never expect danger to come in a blue coat with a shaking voice and age spots. But it does, and it did, and everything was alter, and everything was alter. I never thought the worst night of my life would start during something as foolish as a Tuesday closing shift at a bargain retail store in northern Arizona. My name is Ilana Ruiz and I'm 29 now. However, I was 22 when this occurred. I used to believe that working in retail was only a temporary solution. Anything you put up with while hoping for better. Back when I still had Luis. Luis wasn't my husband, though he wanted to be. He wasn't flawless, no saint, no superhero. But he was the only person who made me feel like my life could be something more than the unending grind of late shifts, nasty customers, and empty refrigerators. We'd grown up on the south side of Yuma. Hear people fighting through the walls of those old apartment buildings. Additionally, the electricity grid breaks at least once a week throughout the summer. But Luis, he was warmth. He was at home. He used to walk me to work. Even if he had his own early shift at the tire business across town, he always emphasized, "Mia, you don't stroll alone after dark here. Not with all the underscore going on. People going missing is something you hear about. Cartels got their paws everywhere now." I'd laugh it off back then, but he didn't. Not after his cousin's ordeal. Not after the news stories. And now looking back, I should have listened more, because whatever happened to Luis that night, whatever took him away was waiting for him before we ever knew it. The business was called Bargain Barn, one of those enormous clearance retail locations that buys leftover merchandise from bigger companies. It smelt like cardboard, rubber, and that weird artificial berry aroma the cleaning crew sprayed on the floors. I despised it, but it was a job. That night, I was working with 3 co-workers. Our shift manager, Renee Hart, was tall, pallid, and tense all the time, as if he had been drinking too much coffee for 10 years in a row. Levi Ortega, the stock room child, 17, loud, talked like every sentence required a bro at the end. Front register, Shauna Briggs, sweet woman, mother of 2, so tired that if you allowed her, she would fall asleep on her feet. Luis hung around the store whenever we were slow. He would find a chair in the electronics section, get a beverage from the rear cooler, and wait for me so he could take me home. He used to quip, "You're the love of my life, Ileana. I will not allow you to leave this place by yourself. Half the people who come in here like they just left prison." In that regard, he was correct. The store was considerably rougher than the neighborhood. Half of the security cameras we had were broken. We had alarms, but everyone knew the code. We had standards for safety, but nobody followed them. I clocked in at 3:58 p.m., examined the schedule, taped crookily on the corkboard, and moaned. Closing again. Behind me, Louise responded, feigning astonishment. My poor girl. They want to kill you. Please, I chuckled. This place can barely afford plastic bags. let alone a hitman. Louise grinned and kissed my cheek. Still, I'm still around. There's nowhere better to be. I gave him a shove. You have your mechanic class tomorrow. Avoid staying too late. He shrugged. You know me. I just want to make sure you're safe. I had no idea that would be the last time he would say that to me face to face. The first hint something was awry was around 8:10 p.m., around 2 hours before closing. With the exception of a couple fighting over a blender, a teenage girl attempting to steal lip gloss, and an elderly man meandering through the aisles as if he had no idea why he was there, the store was largely deserted. The bizarre one was the man. Despite the heat, he was tall and thin, wearing a filthy denim jacket, and he kept looking over his shoulder as if someone was pursuing him. He had a paper shopping bag, crushed and wrinkled, clasped tight in his left palm. Hey, I murmured to Shauna at the register. Do you think that guy looks okay? She hummed. Probably not, because it looks worse than my ex-husband. We chuckled, but I continued to observe him. His gaze kept flitting to the rear corridor, the one that went to the stockroom, break room, and restrooms for employees. Luis noticed him, too. Whose denim jacket? He questioned gently, leaning next to me in the cleaning products aisle. No idea, but he's creeped out. Luis crossed his arms. He continues glancing at me. Maybe he likes your hairstyle. I teased. Luis didn't laugh. Nah, something's wrong with him. Luis was correct, as the man vanished an hour later. Vanished. Luis was, too. It was 9:20 to p.m. I recall the moment accurately, since I was checking the registers to prepare for cash out. Luis had gone to the toilet. Be right back, darling, he said, tapping my arm. Don't run away with some handsome customer. I'll try to control myself, I said in jest. He rolled his eyes. I'll be 5 minutes. However, 5 minutes became 10, 15, and 20. At 9:39, I had that sinking feeling in my stomach. The one that feels like icy water pouring down your spine. There's a problem. I went to the rear hallway and knocked on the men's room door. Luis, you okay? No answer. I opened the door with a push. Empty. There are no feet beneath the stalls. No running water. Nothing. I phoned you. Renee. Can you check the cameras? Luis didn't come out of the lavatory. Renee sighed like I'd asked him to build a house. Ileana. The cameras in that hallway haven't operated 4 months. Then examine the bathroom ones. These cameras are phony ones. What? Since when? Since, always. They're just for show. My heart fell. You're not serious. He shook his head. Probably stepped outside. Ask Levi. I spotted Levi in the stockroom crushing cardboard crates. Did Luis come through here? No, man, he said, hardly even glancing up. I haven't seen him since he went to urinate. Would you please inspect the loading dock? Sure. Together, we strolled. The large metal door was closed, but the smaller side entrance, the one only personnel were supposed to use, was cracked open. Did you open that? I asked. No. Levi responded softly. He opened it with a push. The air from the desert was chilly. The alley behind the store was practically pitch black, lit only by a faint street lamp. Louise, I called. Quiet. Then we saw it. A crumpled paper bag laying on the ground by the skip. The man in the odd denim jacket had been carrying the same paper bag. Levi scratched his head. Was that guy throwing his trash back here? No, I whispered. That bag wasn't here earlier. The bag had something scrawled on it in shaky black marker. No mirrors, a key, no peek here. All right, that's really unsettling, Levi remarked. I dropped on my knees and opened it. Inside was a single USB drive, a cheap hotel room keycard, and a folded paper serviette with a number scrolled on it. One thing was clear to me, but I didn't comprehend anything else. Luis would not simply disappear. He wouldn't just walk out. Something happened. Something nasty. Call 911. I told Levi. He retreated. I don't want to call them. When Shauna heard me yelling, she bolted. What's going on? It's Louise, I said, voice cracking. He's gone. Her expression relaxed. Oh, honey, maybe he just stepped outside for air. No, I firmly said. He didn't. It was palpable in my bones. Luis didn't leave me. Someone took him. The officers waited 37 minutes to arrive. They searched the alley, asked basic questions, took notes, then treated me like some overdramatic girlfriend whose partner eventually got tired of her. Officer Dempsey, one of them, even said, "Mum, people leave relationships all the time. Happens every day." He didn't leave. I lost my temper. "Something happened inside your store." Renee stepped in. "She's emotional, officers. Perhaps Luis headed home early." I said he didn't. "You don't know that." Renee insisted. Shauna scowled. Renee shut up for one damn second. However, the police concluded that nothing illegal had happened and departed. As soon as the final cruiser drew away, I heard Renee mutter under his breath, "Great. Just what we needed. Drama." I turned on him. "Leisha is missing, and you care about drama." Renee raised his hands defensively. "It's not as if he was taken from the lavatory by the cartel." Ileana, those words should have been soothing, but they weren't. Because how did he know to mention the cartel? Why did he start with that example? Something felt odd, very wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my tiny kitchen table staring at the USB drive. I finally hooked it into my laptop around 4 in the morning. There was only one file, a video 10 seconds long. The clip was shaky, shot from a phone displaying the inside of our store's back corridor. The same one going to the bathrooms. In the video, I could see Luis making his way to the bathroom door. But there was a towering figure behind him who shared the weird man's denim jacket. The footage terminated the moment the figure reached out towards Luis. It took 10 seconds, but it was sufficient to verify everything. He had been pursued by someone. Someone had been inside our store. Someone had stolen him. I was also wanted to view it by someone. For 2 days, I asked the cops to investigate. They brushed me off, stated that it might be a joke or old footage. I therefore began my own research. I called the number given on the serviette. A man answered on the first ring. His voice sounded rough and low. "You shouldn't have phoned." "Where is he?" I demanded. "Where's Luis?" "Quiet." I then attempted to caution him. "Warn you both." He didn't listen, though. "What are you talking about?" He asked queries. Wrong questions. The wrong folks. "What people?" "Signora, you must stop. Nothing you do will bring him back. Nothing. Tell me where he is." "You don't want that answer." The line clicked dead. I tossed my phone across the room and shouted. Luis wasn't a criminal. He wasn't involved in anything shady. He changed tires and saved tips, so we could move out of that nasty apartment complex eventually. Who are the wrong people? What improper questions? Then I recalled something. Luis had told me something odd 3 days before to his disappearance. We were laying in bed, the fan rattling above us, when he said, "Babe, you ever wonder how Bargain Barn gets all that inventory so cheap? They are not imitations, just like the tablets, phones, and clothing. They're new, labeled, fresh, so overstock." "Nah," he said. I once asked Renee. He got weird about it. At the time, I had dismissed it, but today, every little detail was important. I cornered Renee by the seasonal aisle during my next shift. "We need to talk," he groaned. "Ileana, no, listen. Luis asked you where the store receives merchandise, right?" Renee tensed. "I mean, maybe. Why? And what did you tell him?" "That it has nothing to do with him." I stepped closer. "Why isn't it our business, Renee?" He scanned his surroundings as if he was worried someone would hear. "Drop it." "No." His jaw clenched. "You don't grasp several aspects of this store, Ileana." "Then give an explanation." "I am unable to." "Why?" "Because you're involved." Renee flinched like I'd smacked him. I swallowed hard. "What did Lucy find out?" "I don't know," he whispered. "But he was asking too much. Asking questions you shouldn't ask." "About what?" Renee caressed the back of his neck, sweating about the suppliers, about shipments, about where the stuff comes from, and I ordered him to stop. Warned him that he might suffer harm. My blood went cold. "Do you mean that someone heard him?" "I'm saying," Renee whispered. "I warned him." Then he went, leaving me trembling as I stood in the aisle. Over the next week, I pieced everything together. Every rumor, every suggestion, every murmur I'd overheard in the break room. And the truth was awful. Our store wasn't just inexpensive retail. It served as a laundry facility, a quiet drop spot for stolen goods smuggled through the border. Electronics, clothes, accessories, goods taken off trucks, tourists, warehouses, and sometimes persons smuggled in, smuggled out, utilized, disposed of. The denim jacket man had been part of it, escaping from someone or trying to warn someone, and something must have been worked out by Louise, my lovely, protecting, obstinate Louise. He must have confronted the wrong person, must have been followed, must have been taken because of curiosity, because of trying to protect me, because he wasn't afraid to ask questions. My chest clenched until I couldn't breathe. Why did you look, Louise? I spoke softly into the vacant living room. Why didn't you just ignore it? 2 months later, a detective came on my door. He was not wearing a uniform. I'm Detective Halpern, he added softly. We must discuss your boyfriend. My legs went weak. He said, we found remains. I shut my eyes. There was no identification, but there was a silver chain bearing the letter L. Lewis chain, which I had given him on his 21st birthday. I collapsed. Before I could fall to the ground, he caught me. I'm sorry, he mumbled, but I barely heard him. My world broke. A week later, I drove out into the desert with a small candle, a picture of Louise, and all the love I had left. When death takes someone before their time, pray, my abuser used to say. When death takes someone violently, pray harder. When death steals someone you love, pray to Somtam Werte herself. She listens when no one else does. I prayed as a result. I prayed until my throat burnt, until my hands shook, until the candle guttered out on the sand. I said to the chilly desert wind, I don't want revenge. All I want is for him to relax. Please, please let him relax. I'm not sure if she heard me. I don't know if death cares, but I felt something that night. Peace, maybe, or maybe just fatigue. In any case, I was aware of this. Louis didn't abandon me. He didn't flee. He didn't leave. They had him, and every night since, I sleep with his chain under my pillow, telling myself that somehow, somewhere, his soul knows I never stopped looking for him, and I never will, looking for him, and I never will. I never thought a retail job would damn near break me, but then again, if someone had told the 19-year-old version of myself that I'd still be grinding late nights at a convenience store in a dusty little village by 74, I probably would have laughed and gone back to reading TikTok. My expectations had been modified by life. Reed Hollis is my name. Born and bred in a location whose people only ever drive through on their way to somewhere better. Hawthorne Bend, Illinois. Population signs that haven't been updated since the 90s. After my dad departed and my mom got sick, I put college on wait for a year. A year turned into 2, turned into 4. Now I'm 23, living in a rented attic room above a laundromat, working nights at Quick Mart 47, a convenience store, the kind of place that smells permanently of burnt coffee and mop water, and whose back freezer door squeals like it's asking for death. My co-workers were the sole reason I stayed. Lacey, the assistant manager, sweet until she wasn't, always chewing cinnamon gum. Trent, the large muzzly dude who worked weekends and looked like he slept in a gym bag. Nora, my crush, even though she'd definitely slaughter a man with a Twix bar if he angered her enough. Sharp, snarky, lovely. And me, the man who continued taking night jobs because they paid 75 cents more per hour, and because I bizarrely loved the stillness. Night shifts were tranquil, predictable. Black Friday, however, was not. I'd worked Black Friday retail before, Best Buy, Target, the works, and I swore I'd never do it again. People would shove their own grandma for a $50 bargain. But Lacey asked me to take the overnight this year. She added, please, Reed, everyone else is refusing, and you're the only one who doesn't throw up at the idea. Yeah, should have been a red flag. There were no Black Friday sales at Quicket, just a bundle of weird energy drinks and $1 off beef jerky that nobody was interested in. But for whatever reason, Maybe the weather warning. Maybe the bars letting out early. People rushed in non-stop 4 hours. By 4:12 a.m. my feet were hurting me. My throat was raw from saying, "No, sorry, that's not on sale," 900 times, and I finally sat down on a crate in the back hallway for less than 60 seconds. When I put out the trash earlier, I ought to have closed the back door. I should have double-checked it. Should have, could have, all that. But I didn't, and honestly, I didn't even realize it until things went to bad. I heard Nora yell out to me from the snack aisle, "Reed, you alive? You took the trash out like an hour ago." "It's been 5 minutes," I remarked, standing up. "It's been 45, she shouted back. "Come help me pull the chip pallets and stop hiding, loser." Her voice always had that mischievous sting to it. Made my chest throb every damn time. I strolled out to the front. The store was finally empty. Fluorescent lights humming. Coffee pot spewing its death rattle. Lacey had gone home. 1 o'clock a.m. It was just me and Nora until Trent came in at 6 o'clock. We could finally breathe again. Or we thought so. Nora grabbed a stack of Cheetos bags and headed into the back to restock the shelf. Not 30 seconds later, I heard her shout, "Yo, Reed, get back here now." My stomach fell. That tone was strange. Not furious, not humorous, afraid. I rushed back, heart already beating, and saw him. There, huddled in the corner of the storage room, behind a mound of cardboard, was a gigantic man. Like he looked like a raccoon that broke into a pantry on a binge. And the worst part was that half of his face was blue, with Cheeto dust smeared across his cheek and beard like war paint. He was over 300 years old, had sweat-soaked hair, was wearing dirty gym shorts and a stretched-out thermal, and had a family-sized bag of Doritos that looked like he'd inhaled it. Nora whispered, "Reed, what the hell?" I stepped forward trying to sound calm. "Hi man, are you okay?" He blinked slowly, then shoved another handful of Takis into his mouth, causing crumbs to explode all over the place. Nora gagged a little. I cleared my throat and said, "Buddy, you can't be back here." Silence. Dust-covered jaw chewing like a cement mixer. "Also," I added softly, "you got to pay for all that." At that point, he finally spoke. His voice thick and deep, not angry, just puzzled. "How the hell am I going to explain this to my wife?" I looked at Nora. She stared at me. I replied, "I mean, you really shouldn't have eaten it if that's a problem. You left the door wide open." He hissed as if I had offended his ancestors. That's not how that works," I said. Nora moved to stand next to me and remarked, "Sir, this is a business, not a free buffet. You can't shut up," he screamed, pointing a thick finger at her. "Don't you sass me. If you didn't want me in here, you should have closed the stupid door." "Yeah," Nora snapped right back. "And if I leave my car unlocked, it doesn't mean you get to nap in the trunk." His face scrunched. "I mean, do people do that?" "No," she yelled. I stepped between them before she swung a bag of Cheetos at him. "Look," I said, palms out. "We're not trying to call the cops, all right? Just pay for the food and we'll." "No cops," he said sharply. "And no wife, right? Okay. So, what do you propose?" He thought about it. I swear I could hear the gears grinding. Then he raised 3 fingers. "Option 1, he said. I win your Black Friday contest." "We don't have one." "You do now?" "No, we don't." He lowered 1 finger. "Option 2, you go halves with me." Nora burst out laughing. "Dude, absolutely not." He lowered another finger. "Option 3, he said, eyes shifting to Nora. "The lady gives me a private show." A cold wave rolled through me. Nora froze. "Sir," she said quietly, "you better take that back before I break your face." I stepped forward, anger spiking. "Get the hell out of here with that. Nora, call the cops now." For the first time, she looked genuinely startled by the seriousness in my voice. She grabbed her phone. The man did not like that. I expected yelling. I expected arguing. I did not expect a 300 lb man to move like a damn linebacker hopped up on Monster Energy. He lunged. Not at Nora. At me. His stomach slammed into my chest like a human wrecking ball. I flew sideways into a stack of toilet paper, the softest possible death trap. Packages tumbled, my ribs screaming. Nora yelled, "Read, move." The man sprinted, legitimately sprinted out of the storage room, Takis's dust trailing behind him and the oncomment. I struggled up, dizzy. Then I heard it. Bam, a scream. A second heavier thud. Then, what the dude? Stay down, Trent. Thank God. Trent had arrived early. Good thing, too. He was an absolute tank of a human being. 6'4", covered in biker tattoos. He had the Takis man pinned against the rear door with his arm over his neck, holding him down with no effort, and he had a beard like he had eaten timber for breakfast. The Takis man struggled furiously, saying, "Let me go. I can't get arrested." Trent grumbled, "My wife. Bro, you charge my co-worker like a deranged Kool-Aid man. You're getting arrested." Nora rushed to me, gasping, "You good? Everything hurts," I mumbled. "But yeah, you saved me back there," she whispered. "Thanks." My face heated. Before I could respond, cops arrived. Thanks to Nora's surprisingly calm 911 call mid-chaos, they cuffed Takis man who whined the whole time about his wife. Ambient long work hours, stress, God, Takis dust in his eyes, just endless nonsense. They asked us questions. We told them everything. They took him away. And for a moment, it seemed over. But it wasn't, not even close. After the cops left, Nora and Trent helped me clean the disaster in the storage room. Wrappers, dust, sticky energy drink puddles. The guy had genuinely been planning to sleep there. There was a blanket, a pillow, even a little bag with toiletries. But something was off. Inside the bag, we found a worn notebook, several Polaroid photos, a prescription bottle, a folded letter. Now, normally we wouldn't snoop, but Trent opened the notebook and immediately said, "Read, you should look at this." The notepad wasn't full of words. You should look at this. The notepad wasn't full of words. It was full of drawings. Drawings of our store, our aisles, our storage room, our break area. Some were dated weeks earlier. Some showed us in them. Me, Nora, Lacey. But one page had a sketch of the storage room door, and beneath it, written in shaky letters, "They leave it open tonight." Nora swallowed hard. "Read." What the hell? Another sketch showed the storage room with a circle drawn in red marker around a corner, the exact corner he'd been hiding in. "Then she will come at 4:15 a.m. Below it in pencil, almost scratched into the paper. "She always does." We looked at the Polaroids. My blood ran cold. The pictures weren't of us. They were of a woman outside our store. Always at night. Always between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock a.m. Standing, watching, sometimes smiling, sometimes blurred like she moved too fast. And the worst in one picture, 3 nights prior, she was standing in the doorway of the storage room, already inside. When Nora dropped the picture, "Read," I was closing that night. We all were. I whispered to Trent, "That's not good." We showed the police later, and they promised to look into it. But they obviously didn't. Why would they? To them, Takis man was just high, manic, or whatever. But we kept the letter. The letter explained everything, written shaky, desperate. "If anyone finds this, I'm sorry. She follows me. She waits at whichever store I enter. She watches me eat. She tells me to hide in the corners, to sleep near the doors, to wait for someone to come in, so I'm not alone with her. The door here was open. I thought maybe here I'd be safe. She comes at 4:15. Whatever happens, don't let her in." Nora read it twice, then whispered, "Read." When I saw him, it was 4:15 a.m., which is exactly when Nora yelled for me, when Takis's man panicked, and when he attempted to flee out the back door, the same door he had written warnings about, the same door that had been unlocked, and the same door he ran to, because perhaps he was running from her rather than us. We closed the store early after the police left and the manager was notified. Corporate didn't care. Clean it up. Write a report. Don't get sued. Classic. Nora. Trent and I stayed behind, sitting at the front counter, still shaken. Do you think he was just nuts? She asked. Maybe, I said. Trent shrugged. People see weird crap when they're stressed. Yeah, I said. But those photographs may be manufactured, Trent remarked. He probably creeped some random woman. Maybe, I said again. But something felt strange. Trent ultimately left to smoke. Nora started sweeping. Near the coffee station, I replenished cups. Then the bell above the door dinged, despite the fact that it ought to have been locked. I froze. Nora pivoted. Trent came running from outside. Someone stood in the doorway. A woman, white hoodie, long dark hair covering half her face, hands at her sides, perfectly still, not blinking, just watching us. Ma'am, I said cautiously. We're closed. No response. Too slowly, she said, tilting her head slowly. Nora took hold of my arm. Read. That's her. The woman remained motionless for a few moments. You left the door open. Every hair on my body stood up. Trent stepped in front of us, she said in a whisper. The lights flickered. The coffee maker sputtered. The front refrigerator buzzed loudly before shutting off, and Nora muttered, Read, as the lady backed off and grinned incredibly broadly before taking a single step that was neither forward nor backward, but rather sideways like she slid. Read, avoid looking. I stared. Her face was suddenly inches from mine. No footsteps, no sound, just there. I stumbled back, knocking over a stack of lids. She leaned close enough that I could smell something. Cold air like snow on metal. Then she whispered, He couldn't run from me. You won't either. Trent grabbed her shoulder, or tried to. His hand went right through her. His eyes widened. What the? Lights burst white, then cut to black. The store went silent when the lights flickered back on. She was gone. All three of us remained frozen, breathing hard, shaking. Trent mumbled, We're quitting tomorrow. Hell yes, Nora said, nodding. I didn't protest. I didn't even go back for my jacket. Quick at 47 shut down 2 months later. Something about electrical troubles and liability risk. But we knew the truth. Nora and I maintained in touch. We actually started dating. Trauma bonding, I suppose. Trent moved to Milwaukee. Takis's man, whose true name we never found out, was admitted to a mental health facility. They said he kept screaming about doors and pleading with the doctors to stop her from following him. Sometimes on late drives home, I pump gas by myself at some random station, and I swear I see a white hoodie in the reflection of the glass, just behind me, just watching, just waiting. It's 4:15 a.m. every night, because the she always comes, and she always finds the open door, and she always finds the open door. I never believed retail could break a person, not in the way fighting does or losing someone does, but a slow, grinding type of break. The kind that makes you cringe at the sound of a shopping cart wheel squeaking and sits in your bones. Back in 2015, before everything in my life spiraled south, before the therapy appointments and the 2 a.m. panic attacks, I was simply a 23-year-old kid struggling to make rent in a dead-end city called Brenton Falls, Michigan. Not many people know this place, unless they've had the misfortune of driving through it. The winters were harsh. The jobs were sparse. Additionally, at least one member of every household I knew was addicted to scratch-off tickets. I wasn't expected to end up working retail. I had dreams, joining the Coast Guard, maybe traveling. However, life had a peculiar way of throwing me for a loop. My dad got sick. Then the hospital costs came. After that, I left school and accepted any position that would hire someone without a degree. That job happened to be frontline retail and electronics, a large box discount store that looked like someone nailed a warehouse on a cargo container and painted it blue. And that's where I met the ones who'd end up sticking in my mind forever. Reland is a hyperactive shift lead that chews gum all the time. Keisha is a night shift cashier who has no tolerance for foolishness. Bishop, the enormous security guard who took everything too seriously. And Lorna, my manager, who operated the business as if she were fighting a secret battle. Her Super Bowl was Black Friday, and she drafted me as soon as I arrived at work. I remember the way the fluorescent lights hummed overhead when I entered break room at 3:40 47 a.m. Everyone seemed dead, not weary. Even Ryland wasn't hopping around like a caffeinated raccoon. Lorna appeared to be prepared to negotiate the release of hostages as she stood in front of us with a clipboard and a headset. "All right, people," she said in an overly composed tone. "Doors open at 5. Above all, no one dies today because we keep the lines going and the energy light. That includes customers, and it includes us." Keisha murmured, "Girl, speak for yourself. If someone tries to run me over with a cardigan, I swear to God, I'm taking them with me." I snorted. "You say that every year." She leaned in closer. "And every year someone try me. Last year some dude threw a toaster at my head 'cause we were sold out." "A damn toaster." Bishop rumbled from the corner. "Man hurled a toaster at you. I would have body smashed him." "You did body smash him." "She said we got sued, remember?" "Oh right. Our crew was that. Competent, barely functional sometimes. But on Black Friday, we were soldiers. We formed a queue inside the entryway at 4:58 a.m. where you could feel the vibration of the crowd outside like a living entity. Hungry, irritated, twitching. Through the glass doors, I saw hundreds of people jammed against the barricades. Hazy breath, crimson eyes, jerking fingers, holding coupon booklets like weapons. A dude in a camo jacket was pump talking to himself like he was preparing to run a marathon. To moms in Christmas pajamas were squabbling before the doors even opened. "Let's go, baby," a teenager said into his phone as he recorded the whole event. "Black Friday, let's go." A cold rushed down my spine. Ryland elbowed me. "You good?" "Yes, I did lie." Because something seemed off for the first time since I started the job. Not typical insane. It's not chaotic like Black Friday. It's more like the atmosphere before a tornado. Lorna nodded to Bishop when the clock struck 5. Reality struck when he moved the metal bar aside and the door slid open. The mob rushed forward like flood water rushing through a falling dam. A woman yelled, even though nothing had happened yet. A man to save 2 seconds. He pushed an old man aside. Someone slipped on the wet floor tiles, and the ones behind didn't stop. They simply drove him over. "Move, move, move," Bishop shouted, waving people through. I made an effort to direct customers to the electronics section. That was my region, yet the gigantic people surged and collided in every direction. Back up, I screamed, but the commotion drowned out my voice. My arm was seized by a man wearing a beanie. "The 50-inch TV SR wear. Back wall, sir." But he shoved me away before I finished. From behind the registers, Keisha shouted, "I just opened." What the hell? Boxes were flying. People were tripping. Someone was crying already. How? Why? Nothing had happened yet. While attempting to reach the TV pallets, I noticed something that I will always remember. To mature men, mid-4 South, beer bellies, both wearing football shirts, grabbed the same discounted 55 in TV. "Let go, bro," one yelled. I was the first to have it. The other sank his nails into the cardboard like an animal. "You're insane." I had it right in my hands. "Dude, you're out of your friggin' mind. You're completely insane, dude." Then the first man elevated his knee and slammed it against the other guy's shin. The sound it made was somewhere between a crack and a snap. The second man yelled, falling. The first man yelled as he dragged the TV box down the aisle before I could shove through. "Baby, it's Black Friday." "Sir," I shouted. "Sir, you just wounded him. Quit." He took off sprinting like he'd robbed a bank. The injured man was walked around like a traffic cone. I knelt next to him. "Could you just move my leg, sir?" My leg was broken by him. "Jesus, hold still." I'm contacting EMS, but the radios were all clogged with frenetic conversation. "Aisle 17. Customer down. We need backup and toys." A freezer door was ripped off by a guy. "What the F? Static. Static more." It was becoming worse by the minute. Chaos peaked at 6:10 a.m. from the kitchen aisle. I heard screams. When I arrived, 2 ladies were grappling, actually wrestling, over the final discounted blender. One, a red-haired woman with a puffy jacket, swung the display model like a club. Let go of it. I got here first. The second woman grasped her coat sleeve after ducking. You want to hit me? Hit me then. At home, I have 6 children. The blender slid from the redhead's hands and smashed into her own wrist with a terrible twist. Oh no, A's son. Instead of pausing, the other woman pulled the packed blender from the shelf triumphantly and exclaimed, "Happy holidays, bitch," before racing off. I stood there frozen. It wasn't amusing. It wasn't ludicrous. It was terrifying. Humanity peeled back like old wallpaper, and behind was something primordial and terrible. Around 7:30 a.m., I got called to toys. My mind was absolutely unable to comprehend what I was witnessing when I arrived at the aisle. 2 adult males, mid-20s, greasy ponytails, wearing trench coats indoors, were embroiled in a fist fight over a collectible card pack. "Dude, you touched my sleeve," exclaimed one. "That is an attack." Other person screamed back, "You got the last pack. That's theft, arsehole." Then they slammed into the shelving unit, knocking down half the aisle. Stuffed animals everywhere. Board games are strewn all over the floor. Plastic action figures rolling under shelves. I grabbed one by the hoodie. Hey, break it up." His eyes were wild with adrenaline as he whirled around. "Back off, guy. This is limited edition." He shoved me before I knew it. Not hard, but enough to stun me. Bishop came behind me like a linebacker materializing from smoke. "Touch him again," he growled. "You're being folded like clothes by me." The 2 men froze. Folded like clothes by me. The 2 men froze. The store appeared to be a battleground by 9 a.m., with entire shelves empty. Cardboard all over the place. Carts overturned. Aisles damaged. 10 people hurt. Transported to the emergency room, and half a day remaining. My hands were shaking. My shoulders hurt. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't breathed properly 4 hours. It was at this time something inside me cracked. I was really scarred by that incident. We had a replenishment of gaming consoles scheduled for 9:15 a.m. Everybody was aware. The throng was waiting. When the pallet was rolled out, the throng pushed so furiously the display cage tipped backward. I felt a hand grab my vest, someone yelling at me to get out of the way, but the surge of bodies rushed into me like a riptide. I lost my footing, and the world went dark. I tumbled down face first, and immediately there were feet everywhere, stomping, sliding, kicking. A boot crashed into my ribs. A grocery cart rammed into my leg. I was unable to move, breathe, or scream. This is it, I recall thinking. Someone wants a $50 discount, so I'm going to die on a dirty store floor. And no one took attention. No one gave a damn. In that moment, humanity didn't exist. Only hunger. Only desperation. Abruptly, powerful arms seized me and pulled me out of the crush. I gulped, choking, staring up at fluorescent lights. "It was Bishop. You good?" he inquired anxiously. I was unable to respond. It was burning in my chest. It burnt in my throat. I merely nodded slowly. He patted my shoulder. "Stay behind me." Nowadays, people behave irrationally. Insane? No, this wasn't crazy. This was something uglier. By lunchtime, police were in the building. Multiple arrests. 2 individuals were brought out on stretchers. 5 employees had breakdowns in the break room. 1 quit on the spot. And me. I sat on a pallet behind the employee doors, shivering uncontrollably. Keisha sat next to me, offering me her water bottle. "You look pale as hell," she whispered softly. "You okay?" "No," I whispered. "I thought I was going to die out there," she sighed. "Yes, I do wonder why people do this every year. Why do they become beasts because of some cheap crap?" I stared at the floor. I don't think it's the sale. I suppose Black Friday merely shows who people really are. Keisha refrained from arguing. She didn't have to. We both knew it was true. I never worked another Black Friday again. Since then, I've asked for vacation every year. Sometimes I still hear the crowd in my dreams, feel the shove of bodies, the crush of weight, the panic. Retail changed me. Survival changed me. People joke about Black Friday videos online. They laugh at them. But until you've been there, until you've seen grown adults break each other for a cheap TV. When people believe they are anonymous in a crowd, you have no idea how dark they can get. Even now, whenever I walk past a store on Thanksgiving weekend, my chest tightens because I know what I saw. I know what humans can become. And the scariest part, they don't even realize it. Not until you're the one under their feet. I never thought the smell of burnt popcorn and old floor wax would become the scent that reminded me of who I used to be. Before that night, I was simply a tired retail worker trying to make rent in a little, nothing remarkable town called Redwood Junction, tucked somewhere off the freeway, where no one stopped unless their gas light was flashing. Although most of my co-workers nicknamed me Roo, my name is Ruben. I'd been working at Benson Mart, a 24-hour convenience store jammed opposite an aging strip mall, for about 3 years. Long enough to know the regulars' drink preferences, long enough for me to hear the coolers hum while I slept, and long enough to understand that Black Friday brought out a different kind of person. I used to have bigger plans: community college, HVAC certification, maybe even a move out to Arizona with my elder brother. But debt piled up swiftly and rent didn't care about goals. So Benson Mart became home in the way that places you never expected to stay somehow become anchors. That Black Friday, I picked the night shift for one simple reason: triple pay. My brother's hours in the warehouse were reduced, and my mom's medical expenditures were mounting following her second spinal surgery. In slow motion, we were all drowning. So, when the schedule went up and the Black Friday overnights were empty, I scrawled my name in permanent marker. My co-worker for the night was Louise, a guy in his early 30s with a shattered tooth, a soft nature, and a chuckle that came from deep in his chest. Folks around town called him Loco Louise, not because he was insane, but because he had once confronted a wild turkey in the parking lot after it assaulted a youngster. The name stuck, and Louise leaned into it like a badge of honor. That night, though, he appeared quieter than normal. Staring at nothing, he stirred a cup of instant cocoa at the coffee station. "You good, man?" I asked him as I clocked in. He shrugged. "Black Friday's odd energy, buddy. People turn into monsters when a sale hits." I tied my apron and murmured, "Yeah, well, demons had best make a purchase." Louise chuckled, but not convincingly. It was 9:30 p.m. The sun was long gone, and outside, a wave of headlights from the Target parking lot spilt over our shopfront windows. The rush has begun. Benson Mart served as a holding space for the chaos that had overflowed next door. By 10 p.m. people walked in sweating, cursing, clutching shopping bags like they were newborn babies. A woman in a puffy jacket slapped 3 energy drinks down on the counter. "Bring it up fast," she snapped. "I vow to God that if I lose my spot in the Target return queue, I'll burn this whole block down." "Behind me," Louise muttered. "People get nuts over a Bluetooth speaker." Shh. I gave her the receipt while hissing. "Tonight, we don't report arson threats." She stormed out, mumbling something about capitalism and stupid. Before he entered, it was the typical Black Friday atmosphere: aggressive, desperate, and absurd. He came in limping, wearing a huge brown coat that looked older than both of us together. His beard was yellowed, his eyes bloodshot, but attentive. He didn't smile, but he wasn't angry either. "Just off. Evening, Chief," he said, voice like gravel. "You're going to throw those dogs out soon?" I gave a blink. Sure. They're due to expire." "Why? Let me take them then." "Don't want to watch food go to waste." He stated it sweetly enough. So, I nodded and grabbed a platter of the old hot dogs we were minutes away from tossing out. "You want buns with these?" I asked. He gave me this look, lip curved slightly, eyebrows lifted. "Yes, indeed. That's how you eat a dang hot dog." I dismissed the slight attitude. People are affected by Black Friday. I returned to the old Windows XP computer that froze every time I attempted to print a shift report after giving him the dogs and pointing to the condiment station. After 10 minutes, Louise approached me from the side. "Roo, bro, we got a dilemma." I sighed. "What happened now?" Someone battling over the microwave burritos again. Louise gave a head shake. It's the old dude. He committed a war crime at the mustard dispenser. I looked up and my stomach fell. The condiment station looked like a huge tragedy site. Ketchup puddles, mustard smeared like evidence from a crime scene. Enjoy yourself everywhere on the floor, the counter, and even the fucking lotto machine. And the old man was still there. He marched towards us, one hot dog in each hand, fists clenched around them like weapons. These things taste like boiled rubber scrap, he said. You feeding people this garbage? I choked back a laugh. Sir, they were free and expired. He yelled. Don't care, Louise said. Call this customer service. Here we go. Sir, I said, keeping my tone level. Please feel free to present me with your receipt if you're not happy. He threw the first hot dog before I could finish. It whizzed past my shoulder and splashed against the wall, slipping down in a path of ketchup. The second one smacked me dead center in the cheek. The world fell silent. Mustard dripped down my face. Relish slipped into my apron. Louise gasped. Oh, hell no, he mumbled. Before the elderly guy could rant again, the door swung open, so fiercely the bell cracked from its screw. A woman sprinted inside. Mid-20s, red hair, Target bags bouncing against her knees. She grasped a sealed box in her hands. Something pricey. Please, she shrieked. You got to hide me. We froze. What's going on? Louise inquired. She sobbed. They think I stole the last discount iPod. I didn't steal it. I bought it. I promise. But these people, these individuals are hunting me. Hunting. I repeated as if on cue. We heard yelling outside. A mass running. The woman's eyes went crazy. Please don't let them find me, the old guy scarfed. These days, there are thieves everywhere. You threw hot dogs in my face. I lost my temper. Sir, sit down. But Louise, sweet, foolish Louise, got an idea. A horrible one. He took hold of the elderly man's collar. Hey, what are you doing? Yelled the elderly man. Louise flung the front door open and virtually shoved the old guy outside. Then he yelled loud enough for the gathering mob to hear. Hey, this man snatched the lady's iPod. A split second of silence. Then 5, 6, maybe 7 persons from the target lot stampeded at us. Get him. There was a shout. The old man's eyeballs bugged out. Wait. What the no? He ran rapidly. Astonishingly quick for a lame person. The mob chased him into the darkness. Louise locked the door behind him, chest heaving. The woman's jaw fell as she stared. You saved me. Louise dabbed at his perspiration. Ma'am, I got you, I mumbled. We're absolutely getting sued someday. The turmoil should have ended there, but it didn't. The client waves slowed about midnight. The woman with the iPod sat at a booth near the window, sipping complimentary chocolate. She introduced herself as Harper, a teacher from 3 towns over, just trying to acquire Christmas gifts early. She was calming down. We were calming down. And then Louise whispered the words that made my stomach knot. Look out. Are you? I turned. Just visible in the street light. A man stood at the far end of the parking lot. A man, tall, thin, not the old hot dog guy. This man stared at the business while standing erect and motionless. I remarked, maybe he's waiting for a ride, but I wasn't convinced. Harper glanced up. Is it the previous crowd? No. Louise answered quietly. This man is unique. The person stepped forward. Slow, deliberate. My throat went dry. Lock the deadbolt, I whispered. Louise did. The man continued coming. Step, stop, step, stop. He was now so close that the bottom part of his face was illuminated by the passing headlights. He was smiling, but not the nice neighbor type of smile. More like a smile stretched too wide, to motionless. I stepped forward. Can I help you, sir? He simply paused in front of the door and inclined his head, observing each of us through the glass, without responding. Louise murmured, Yo, I don't like this. Harper concealed her face behind the cocoa cup. Harper concealed her face behind the cocoa cup. The man carefully raised a hand and tapped on the glass with one knuckle. Speak, not loud. Not pushy, nearly nice. Then he spoke. You got a chick here. Hair is red. Bought stuff she didn't earn. Harper froze. I moved between her and the window. "Sir," I said firmly, "you must go. The store is closed for cleaning." He laughed quietly. Deadpan. "Wrong. Do you really believe that a locked door stops anything?" My heart thudded on my ribs. Luis moved closer to the shotgun located behind the counter. Company policy suggested we shouldn't use it unless our lives were in danger. This felt like that. "Sir," I repeated again, voice tighter. "Go now." He leaned closer until his forehead pushed against the glass and said, "She owes us." "Who?" I demanded. However, he remained silent. Rather, he whistled, looked over his shoulder, and took a single, slow step back. A signal. Shapes appeared from the darkness. 4, maybe 5 people, faces disguised behind hoods, all walking towards the store. Harper let her cup fall. "Gosh, oh gosh," she breathed. "That group wasn't the same. They are not the same individuals. Those were the ones who tried to grab me in the parking lot." Luis murmured, "Rue, this is horrible. This is just awful." I grabbed the phone to dial 911. Nothing. Deadline. Luis made an attempt to sell. "There is no signal." Harper's hands trembled violently. They jammed the block earlier. They were using walkie-talkies to communicate. They utilized them to coordinate around the exits. "What the hell did you buy?" I growled. She gave a head shake. "Nothing worth dying over. Just a $129 discount iPod." The group arrived at the door. Then the tall man at the front spoke again. He ordered, "Bring her out," and we left. "No," I said. He blinked once, seeming disappointed. Then he took something from his jacket pocket, a brick, and he swung. Glass broke. Harper let out a scream. Luis adjusted the shotgun. "Back up," he screamed, voice cracking. The tall man swung again, expanding the hole. Others took whatever they could from the target area, including rocks and crowbars. They wanted inside. They wanted her. The door splintered. One warning shot was fired into the ceiling by Louise. The blast shook the whole store, but it didn't startle them. They sprang through the gap. "Go," I shouted, yanking Harper into the stockroom. Louise tried to block them, but one of the attackers tackled him, crushing him against the counter. "Louis," I yelled. "I'm good." He coughed. "Run." I pushed Harper through the stockroom door and turned the lock. Thumping. Loud cries. I shoved storage racks in front of the door. Harper cried into her sleeve. "I never meant this. Wasn't why are they doing this?" I swallowed hard. "It's not your fault. People lose their thoughts on Black Friday." "No, not like this," she whispered. "They talked about seeking tribute, about picking someone. I assumed they were making a joke." My blood ran cold. Footsteps thumped towards the stockroom. The door trembled. Luis yelled something outside. Then a crash, like he'd been hurled into a display rack. "Come out," the tall man yelled. His voice was quiet again. "To calm. This doesn't have to be messy." Harper shook her head furiously. I grabbed a box cutter from the shelf. That felt small, sad, but that was all I had. The door cracked near the hinge. One more hit and one more. The frame started to break. "Are you?" Harper whispered. "I'm afraid." I said, "Me too." Just when the door looked about to crack, a strange noise burst through the store. A trumpet, loud, aggressive, constant. Then, "Hey, you rat-faced morons, back away." A voice one recognized. A voice I didn't expect to hear again. The old man, the hot dog thrower. He was shouting from outside. And he wasn't alone. Behind him were the very same irate Target shoppers who had chased him earlier, all wielding various makeshift weapons, wiffle ball bats, camping chairs. One woman used a frozen turkey as a mace. They charged into the store like a confused cavalry. "What the?" the tall man yelled. An altercation burst in the aisles, shouting, moaning, shelves collapsing. I grabbed Harper and pushed her towards the emergency rear exit. Luis, still upright, but bleeding from his lip, stumbled towards us. "Go," he screamed. "I'll stall anyone who follows." We pushed through the rusting steel door and stumbled into the cold night air. Until we arrived at the fire station across the street, we continued to run. Everything was a haze once inside. Police reports, checks, statements. Harper cried frantically. Luis kept making jokes to disguise his shaky hands. I sat on the pavement outside peering at Benson Mart as paramedics patched up the injured crowd and the old man. He strolled past me, pausing for 1 second. "You owe me for them hot dogs, kid," he replied. I chuckled. The attackers were taken into custody for the first time that evening. Turns out they'd created a group online, determined to seizing Black Friday deals by force. They'd been following Harper since the parking lot, believing she stole an item they deserved. Benson and Mart had to replace half the front windows. Louise got to stitches and a whole lot of bragging rights. Harper sent us a thank you card with a $200 Starbucks gift card nestled inside. And me, I still work retail, still smell burnt popcorn and floor wax every Black Friday. I still recall that evening when the sun sets and the masses begin to gather. Retail workers never get credit for the turmoil we survive, and sometimes all it takes is one shift to remind you that folks don't simply go crazy on Black Friday. Long before the sales started, some were already insane. After college, I never intended to work in retail, but life has a crazy way of throwing you for a loop. I had recently left community college in 2014 due to my mother's illness, and my part-time employment at Riverside Walmart turned into my full-time career. The medical expenses didn't care about my dreams or my burnout, so I worked every extra shift I could. Riverside wasn't even the town's real name. That was exactly what the locals termed our little patch of Kansas. There was a Walmart that essentially kept the entire town alive, a diner that constantly smelt like burnt bacon grease, and a single blinking traffic signal. If you wanted everything from diapers to ammo, there was the destination. I worked nightly stocking, partly because I loved the quiet, less customers, fewer eyes watching me, fewer opportunities to get screamed at for something I didn't accomplish. Additionally, business made the decision to make the most of the holiday season once November arrived. They didn't care who was trampled or how many fights broke out over a $29 toaster. They merely wanted the numbers. So, every year I made a deal with the managers. I declined to work on Black Friday. My chest constricted in crowds. The shoving, the yelling, the mayhem. I was mentally disturbed by it. But the compromise was straightforward. I'd stay late the night before to put up everything. No clients, just hella boxes, and a soundtrack of early 2000s music to keep me awake. That Black Thursday night started regular enough, or Kansas typical at least. My shift started at 6 o'clock p.m. The store closed at 10 o'clock for the Black Friday setup lockdown. But even at 8 p.m., you could feel the anxiety. People set up tents outside and argued over queue places as if they weren't going to charge as soon as the doors opened. There were only 2 co-workers and me inside. Soft-spoken and in her mid-20s, Lara Hart constantly surprised people with her dry sense of humor. Gerald Knox was a large, scary man with a shaven head who passed out when he saw blood. None of us wanted to be there, but we needed the money. Our manager, Brett, shut the front doors at 10:02 p.m., following the departure of the final straggler. "All right, team," he shouted, slapping his hands like a middle school gym teacher. "All promotional islands must be up by 3 in the morning, according to corporate. Electronics needs the new pallets out. Toys need refilling. And the Christmas aisle is a nightmare, so someone handle that." Gerald grumbled. Lara gave an eye roll. I just nodded. "Let's get this over with," I mumbled. Since I seemed to be the cautious one, I was given the front area displays, TVS, laptops, and gaming bundles. They simply didn't trust the other 2 with anything breakable, in my opinion. Things became strange around 11:30 p.m. The first odd noise came, while I was opening a pallet of Chromebooks close to the seasonal aisle. Creak, like a door easing open, just enough for a head to peek through. I peered down the aisle. Nothing. Probably the havoc, I mumbled. Everything was rattled by the Kansas wind. But then there was another noise. Click, 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 click. Metallic, rhythmic, and slow. "Yo, anyone back there?" I called. Quiet. I shook it off and resumed working. The night before Black Friday always had this tension in the air, like the building itself knew what was coming. But by midnight, the feeling shifted. The quiet wasn't peaceful no longer. It felt aware. At around 12:15, Gerald came stomping over annoyed. He pointed behind him and said, "Hey, did one of you all move that ladder?" "What ladder?" I asked. "The blue one by the garden center." I walked past it. Then when I came back, like 5 minutes later, it was leaned against the high shelf like someone was climbing. "I ain't touch it." "You sure you didn't forget?" Lara teased. Gerald scowled. "I'm big, not dumb." I grinned, but my stomach constricted on the inside. People conducting pranks, sure, but that ladder was heavy. No one outside of employees should have even been near that area. Maybe Brett moved it. I indicated he clocked out an hour ago. Lara said his wife would kill him if he missed Thanksgiving leftovers. So, not him. We brushed it off. We always shrug things off. That was our first error. Around 10:05 a.m. we met up in electronics to speed through the setup together. Lara was stacking clearance headphones when she suddenly froze, staring at one of the display cameras. "Guys, look at this." She tapped the touch screen of the Sony demo camcorder. It was recording. Not just recording. It already had footage saved. "Did either of you set this up?" She said. "Nope," I said. Gerald shook his head. "I don't even know how to turn that thing on." Lara opened the gallery. There was only one clip. Timestamped 00000, because demo models never had clocks set. The thumbnail showed a man's face. We all leaned in. She hit play. The video opened on static. Then the image steadied. A man with shallow skin, thin jaw, and stringy hair stared directly into the camera. He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. He whispered something at the end, but the audio was too low to make out. Then the clip abruptly cut off. "That ain't funny," Gerald said quietly. "Who is that?" My voice felt caught in my throat. Maybe someone messed with it earlier. A customer. Then why is he peering at it like that? Lara whispered like he's watching something behind us. We all immediately looked over our shoulders. Nothing. Quiet. Just the hum of the freezer section. I attempted to dismiss the discomfort as we kept working, but every display felt like someone had touched it before us. A toy drone set at the wrong angle. A stack of Blu-rays shifted. Not enough to be evident, just enough to be wrong. Around 10 a.m., we heard something smash from the back of the store. "Stockroom," I said. Gerald grasped a metal pole. "Why do I got to go first?" "Because you're built like a linebacker," I said. "A scared linebacker," he mumbled. We strolled down the corridor towards the stockroom door. The fluorescent light above us flickered like a dying firefly. When we approached the corner, the stockroom door was half open. Not totally, not swinging, just barely cracked, like someone peeked out and forgot to close it entirely. Lara whispered, "Wasn't it locked?" "Yes," I said. "Brett locked it before he left." Gerald exhaled. "Okay. So either we're getting robbed or there's a ghost." "Robber I can handle." "A ghost? Absolutely not." We approached the door slowly. I pushed it open. The stockroom was dim, lit only by the emergency lights. Rows of shelves towered, filled with bicycles, crockpots, storage bins, and in the back corner, under a pallet of rice bags, was a sleeping bag. A real one, blue, unclean, flattened like someone had been laying in it moments earlier. "Someone's living in here," Lara muttered. My blood ran cold. Beside it, another sleeping bag was folded. A torn cereal box, a bottle of water, a phone charger hooked into an outlet, and then we saw him. A man in flannel pajamas sat snuggled up against the wall with his knees drawn to his chest. The same lean face, the same tired eyes. The man in the video captured on camera. He looked up at us slowly, not startled, just resigned. Gerald backed up swiftly. "You? Absolutely not. No. Stay cool," I murmured, though my heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted out. The man didn't move, didn't say, merely observed us, expression unreadable. I muttered to Lara, "Call the cops." She nodded and slipped out of the room. I stayed, Not because I wanted to, but because the man hadn't blinked since we found him, and I had a feeling that it would be risky to leave Gerald alone. For Gerald, not the man. "Hey man," I said carefully. "You can't stay here. You need to wait for the police." He finally blinked once. Then he murmured, voice raw, "They're not coming for me." My stomach flipped. Who? His gaze drifted past us towards the hallway. The walls contained them. Gerald retreated even further. "Nope, nope, I'm leaving." However, the man's next comments were so faint and barely audible that they took the breath out of me that I was immobile. I'm not the only one here. About 2:40 a.m., the police showed up. They took the man from the stock room as gently as they could, but he didn't fight, didn't resist, didn't even look at us on the way out. Didn't resist, didn't even look at us on the way out. What worried me most wasn't him. They discovered it in his suitcase. A camcorder, a USB cable, a box of AA batteries, a notebook filled with wobbly handwriting. They come out around midnight. They are aware of my sleeping location. The women's restroom is their favorite. Sergeant Hale, a female officer in command, approached us with a tense look. "You three work tonight?" she questioned. "Yes," I answered. "Did any of you go to the women's restroom recently?" "Yeah," Laura answered softly. "Around 11 o'clock. Why?" The cop held up the camcorder. "There's footage." Footage she declined to describe. She stated that video had to be recorded as proof. Laura went white. Gerald started pacing, muttering curses beneath his breath. And me. My chest felt tight again. 4 years. My anxiety was manageable. Tonight, it felt like my ribs were caving in. But the night wasn't done with us. Not even close. The cops were still assessing the incident when something slammed into the business. Difficult. A shelf, a pallet, a person. One officer ran inside. Another stayed outside with the arrested man. We followed the officer gently. There was a display of laundry detergent bottles strewn all over the floor down aisle 17, as like someone had raced right through it. But nobody was there. The cop radioed the others. They swept the aisles roby row. Nothing till bang. Something hit the break room door. Then again, harder. We turned the corner. The door rattled as if someone on the other side was throwing their whole weight against it. "Hands up. Move away from the entrance," the officer shouted. The banging ceased. Quiet. The officer eased the door knob, turned it, opened at a crack. Inside, the lights flickered, and there, sitting at the break room table, was a second sleeping bag, and on the wall, etched into the paint, 3 of us, 2 left. Gerald cursed loudly. "I'm not going to deal with that." "Nope." Laura's voice broke. "How many stayed here overnight?" I muttered. "More than one." The cop stepped inside fully. The break room was vacant, yet the hairs on my arm sprang up like someone exhaled near my neck. At 4 a.m. the business was cleared by the cops. Sort of. They assured we were safe, but something didn't feel comfortable, because as we waited near the front entrance, I spotted the arrested man peering through the window at us, nor terrified, nor furious, but cautioned. His lips repeatedly twitched silently. I read them with clarity. "You locked the incorrect door." A chill went down my back. At 5 a.m., the sun started creeping in, turning the sky blue-grey. At last, the police let us go. Brett showed up at 6 o'clock a.m., upset we hadn't finished setting up, but we didn't care. We all headed home, all 3 of us. Life continued on. The individual was accused. The story was hidden by Walmart. Headlines of people residing within their stores don't sit well with corporate. However, I didn't feel comfortable with it. The wall stated 3 of us, to left. However, the police only discovered 2 sleeping bags. Weeks later, while loading toys on a usual calm Tuesday night, I passed the stockroom door. It was locked, padlocked, actually. Corporate's idea of extra security. However, something tapped the door from the inside as I passed. Once, then twice. Slow, deliberate. My heart stopped. I stepped back. Every instinct in me shouted to flee. As I turned to walk away, I heard a whisper, gentle, strained, coming through the crack beneath the door. A voice I didn't recognize. A different individual. Not the one that was arrested. They come out around midnight. I let go of the box I was carrying and bolted. I don't work at Walmart anymore. I transferred out quietly. Took a job at the local hardware shop instead. Fewer aisles, fewer hiding locations. But every year around Thanksgiving, I still recall that night. How close we were. How oblivious, because people hiding in stores overnight happens often than you believe. Furthermore, I don't think we were able to locate everyone who had remained at Rivershine Walmart that evening. I'll never forget the arrested man's last whisper to the officers as they took him to the cruiser. "You're not closing the store. They're locked within by you." When they questioned who he meant, he smiled. That empty, worn smile, and said, "The ones who stay. Every Black Friday. I hope I never run into them again. I pray even harder that no one else ever has to. That no one else ever has to." I never thought the night shift at Redwood Market would transform the way I looked at people forever. I accepted the position for the same reason that the majority of people my age accept any retail position. The remuneration wasn't good. The clientele wasn't very good, but it was near to my flat, and I needed the hours. The store was located in an old, dilapidated strip mall off Briar Avenue, with neon signs that buzzed like they were dying. It was a calm neighborhood. It's just there, nothing special or hazardous. The kind of shop where people went after work to buy milk, beer, and scratch-offs. The kind of location forget about until something forces you to recall it. My shift ran from every weekday from 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. and occasionally over the weekends if I needed the additional money. Most nights were slow after 9 o'clock p.m. with the exception of exhausted parents, late-night snack hunters, and the odd strange person who wanted to know if we had organic Fiji marshmallows or something like that. The store was essentially empty, but that night, the night everything transpired, was different from the second I clocked in. I wasn't exactly in the best headspace. A few weeks prior, Ella, my 3-year girlfriend, ended our relationship. We lived together, so I ended up couch surfing with my co-worker, Juno, until I found a studio I could afford. The breakup wasn't messy, but it left me feeling hollow. One of the few people I trusted was Juno. She had that "I'll fight a grown man if he talks to my friend" weird energy, and was loud and amusing. She had warned me earlier in the day, but I didn't see her that evening because she worked mornings. "Hey, are you working tonight? Be careful." This morning, a few guys showed up wearing identical outfits. Gave me odd vibes. I dismissed it. Retail workers see crazy folks every day. I didn't think twice. I should have. I was lost behind the register at approximately 9:14 p.m., flipping through my playlist in between patrons, with the exception of 2 adolescents collecting sodas and a middle-aged woman checking expiration dates, as if she were getting ready for a food inspection. The store was largely deserted. The door chimed after that. I raised my head. A man strolled in wearing a delicate pastel green hoodie, sandaled sweatpants, white running shoes. Not the standard gang uniform. Strangely, it's not something you'd find in any chain store. Coordinated. He didn't look threatening. Early 20s, maybe. Clean haircut, blank expression. But here's the part that made something inside me stiffen. He made straight eye contact with me the instant he stepped inside. Not a casual gaze. Not a, "Hey, what's up?" He was just staring at me, unnervingly blank, as if he was waiting for me to do something. I cleared my throat. "Evening," I said. No answer. He just kept strolling slow, methodical towards aisle 3, the munchies aisle. Whatever, I thought. Humans are strange. I returned to my playlist, but something seemed different, like the air had thickened, like my body understood something before my brain did. 5 minutes went by. Door chimed again. Another man entered. Same clothes, same pastel green hoodie, same sand-colored trousers, same blank look. Except this one didn't glance at me at all. He strolled straight past, brushing far too near to the counter, like inches from me, yet looked ahead as if I didn't exist. I watched him go to aisle 5, my stomach constricted. "Okay," I mumbled under my breath. It's strange. 2 men wore identical outfits. Maybe they were twins. Maybe they were part of some student club. However, the atmosphere was off. Far too incorrect. Retail employees acquired people reading skills. When you see enough clients, you get adept at sensing emotions. These two didn't feel normal. They felt weird. Like mannequins pretending to be human. I pretended to straighten impulsive purchases as I moved from behind the counter. All I really wanted to do was find out where the first two guys were. I peeked down aisle 3. Pastel hoodie number 1 was standing completely still in the center of the aisle, staring at a bag of pretzels, not picking it up, not comparing brands, just staring like he didn't know what food was. I shuddered. Before I could digest that, I heard the bell again. I turned. My heart fell into my shoes. A third guy. Same pastel hoodie. Same sweatpants. Same expression. But this one glanced directly at me and grinned. Not a nice smile. Not friendly. The kind of smile you see in mugshots of people who believe they have done nothing wrong. The kind that stops short of the eyes. He stepped right up to me. Too close. I stepped back and said, "Can I help you find something?" He gave his head a tiny tilt. "We're just shopping," he said. His speech didn't match his expression. Quiet, bland, like he memorized the tone, but not the meaning. "Okay," I muttered in response. He didn't move. He stood there staring at me for 3 seconds too long. Then he turned around and went to join the first guy in aisle 3. But neither of them acknowledged the other. They didn't even look at each other, like if they were strangers. At that point, my heart rate changed from normal to adrenaline. At 9:33 p.m., I walked to the rear cooler to collect milk for a customer. My hands were shaking enough that the bottles clinketed together. The teenagers had left when I returned. The store was nearly empty, save for the pastel hoodie dudes. And one more, with his arms crossed. A fourth one stood next to the freezer area, gazing at me as though he had been waiting for me to turn around, just maintaining eye contact without blinking or expressing anything. "Yo, dude," I said to myself. "What on earth is this?" I forced myself to walk behind the register. I tried to act normal, but every nerve in my body felt electrified. I wasn't terrified of being jumped or robbed. It was something else, something deeper. It was like being watched, measured, and scrutinized, as if I weren't human. I was a target. Pastel hoodie number 3 stepped up to the counter with a single item, a pack of gum. He laid it lightly on the counter, too softly, as if he had rehearsed the motion. I scanned it. "That'll be $29. He didn't take out his wallet. Rather, he leaned in a little. "You live near here," he remarked. I froze. Why? He simply wondered as he shrugged in a slow, robotic motion. I made myself laugh. "I mean, yeah, like everyone who works around here, right?" He stared, then murmured, "We've already seen you." My stomach flipped. "Before where?" "Prior before when?" I swallowed hard. "Maybe you're confused me with someone else." He remained motionless and did not blink. Finally, he tapped his card and went without another word. The other 3, each standing in a different aisle, as though engaging in some bizarre simulation of shopping, watched him leave. My supervisor, Nessa, came up front from the office around 10 o'clock. "You good?" she questioned. "You look pale. Have you seen the guys?" I muttered. She scowled. "What guys?" I pointed at all 6. Her expression suddenly shifted as she gazed. "Jesus, why are they all dressed the same?" "No clue," I murmured. "But they've been watching me." Nessa was not easily frightened. She had once fought off a man attempting to steal alcohol and ejected inebriated patrons. But now, she bit her lip. "Do you want me to expel them?" she inquired. No, I said hastily. "Just be honest for a little while." She nodded. However, she received a call from her child's school at 10:17. Something concerning documents she forgot. She raced over, grabbing her keys. She questioned, "You going to be okay alone?" I didn't want to sound scared. "Yeah, it's fine." She departed. Behind her, the door chimed. I wasn't fine. Usually, the store music played till closing, but around 10:30, the speaker cut out. Just a gentle hum of electricity. The store seemed too still, too quiet. I cleared my throat forcefully, just to break the silence. The fourth and tallest of the pastel guys emerged from an aisle and stood close to the self-checkout. Not shopping, not moving, just staring at me. I don't get paid enough for this, I murmured. I went to aisle 3 and pretended to straighten the shelves once more. The second man was there, staring at a jar of salsa as if it were written in a language he had never seen. Found everything okay? I asked, my voice wavering. He turned his head slowly, but he didn't look at me. They had their sights set on me. I'm waiting, he murmured. For what? He gently blinked. To slowly. For you. The guy from 5 abruptly ran into the salsa guy as he turned the corner. Instead of acting familiar, he responded like a stranger bumping a stranger. Yo, watch it, he snapped. Stepping back, the salsa guy avoided making eye contact. They weren't a group. They weren't buddies. They didn't know each other then. How the hell were they dressed exactly the same? Why were they monitoring me? The hell were they dressed exactly the same? Why were they monitoring me? What connected them? I hurried back to the front, ready to summon security, even call the police if needed. The door chimed once more before I could reach for the phone. The sixth man wearing a pastel hoodie entered. My heart froze. He strolled right to the center of the store and looked at all 4 others, not with recognition, but suspicion, like they all despised one another, like they were all copies from other locations, forced together in the same room against their choice. One of them whispered, "Not again." Another murmured, "Why so many tonight?" None their voices were identical. They didn't appear to be coordinated. None of them appeared humanly normal. I felt nauseous. "Okay. No," I muttered. "No. I'm calling someone." Mrs. Heron, a regular, came in to get her ice cream for the evening. She looked around, froze, and hurried over to my register. "Sweetie," she muttered. "Why do they exist in such large numbers? Do you also see it?" I breathed. "Oh, honey," she said. I noticed 2 more outdoors near the parking lot. My knees nearly buckled. 7. There are 7 of them. "What do they do?" I muttered. She said, "Just standing, like they're waiting for something." The guys in the pastel hoodies stayed put even after the store was officially closed. They didn't go shopping. They didn't talk. They watched me from various locations throughout the store, each one with a different expression. Curious, blank, smiling, suspicious, inscrutable. I finally said, "I need to go," aloud. I didn't care if they heard me. I grabbed my backpack and proceeded towards the door. That's when one of them, and the smiling one, stood in front of me. He blocked the exit. "You're early tonight," he muttered. I swallowed. "Move." He shook his head slowly. Then he leaned forward till his nose was inches from mine. "You don't understand," he said. "You are not being followed by us. We're doing as instructed." "What instructions?" He smiled wider. "You were chosen." Right as I felt my breath shaking, the office door opened behind me. My night manager, Torai, stepped out. "Hey," she snapped. "Back off. The store's closed." For the first time all night, the pastel guy glanced at her, then at me. He retreated. Torai stormed up to the counter. "What the hell is going on?" she asked. I couldn't even speak. She stared at the 5 pastel boys. "Okay, get out. All of you leave or I'm calling the cops." They didn't argue. They didn't complain. They didn't speak. They just left one by one, silent as shadows. Torai insisted on walking me outside. She locked the door behind us. She questioned, "Those guys ever come in here before?" "No," I muttered. "They looked wrong." She mumbled, "Like off." We walked to my car. That's when we saw them. Not all 5, all 7. Standing in a loose group near the back of the lot. They were facing each other, not us. Like they were discussing something silently, like a meeting without words. "What the hell?" Torai whispered. One of them turned, and when he saw us, all 7 heads snapped towards us at the exact same second, like a planned movement. Torai took hold of my arm. "Get in your car," she muttered. Now I did, hands shaking. I started the engine and locked the doors. The 7 men did not approach us. They merely observed, expressionless and mute, like they were anticipating a signal. Torai stood by my window. Call me when you get home, she added. Don't stop. Don't stare at them. I gave a nod, got out, and drove away. My gaze darted to the rear view mirror. They were still standing there, still staring. It took me 7 minutes to get to my flat building. I looked around the lot after parking beneath a flickering street light. Empty. I made myself take a breath. I proceeded towards my building. Halfway there, I heard footsteps. Behind me, slow and measured. I turned slowly and froze. Nothing. No one. But the footsteps continued for one more second after I turned, as if someone had made a late halt. I didn't run. I hurried inside, shut the door, and stood there gasping for air. I awoke at 3:21 a.m. to my door being knocked on. Soft, rhythmic, precise. I approached gently, peeked through the peephole. My blood froze. One of the men in the pastel hoodies stood there in the dim light of the corridor. The one with a smile. Now there's no facial emotion, just calm, patient waiting. He moved close to the door and whispered, "We're not done." Then he walked away. Days passed, then weeks. They never went back to the shop, never returned to my flat. But something changed in me. Whenever I enter into a store, any store, I scan the aisles. Every pastel hoodie, every pair of sweatpants, every stranger's stare. I never told the police or corporate. Nobody would accept it. But sometimes, late at night, while I go home from work, I think I hear footfall behind me, measured, almost familiar. Occasionally, I catch a glimpse of a pastel green sweatshirt vanishing into a corner, barely out of reach, but close enough to serve as a reminder. They didn't choose me randomly. I've worked in retail long enough to know that nothing good happens after someone says, "Hey, can I show you something real quick?" At this point, I'd spent nearly 26 years behind the counter at Riverline Drug in General, a mid-sized pharmacy tucked between a hardware shop and a liquor store on the east side of town. The kind of place where folks came in for everything, from flu meds to lottery tickets to emotional breakdowns they didn't mean to have in front of strangers. I wasn't always the grizzled veteran people mistook me for. I used to be the new kid once, fresh out of tech school, buzzing with energy and optimism. Now I was the oldest pharmacist on staff, the guy everyone brought problems to, the guy who handled the messy stuff so corporate didn't have to. But even after all these years, nothing prepared me for what happened that spring. And it didn't even happen to me. It happened to Lena. Lena was 19, bright eyes, dark curls tied back in a ponytail, sneakers that squeaked when she walked. She was hired as a front-end pharmacy clerk, basically the person who ran the pickup window, scanned over the counter meds, and answered basic questions. She was studying microbiology at the local college and worked part-time. Her smile could calm down the most irritable old man, demanding his inhaler refill this damn minute. And she never complained, not once. But beneath that smile was someone still learning how odd people could be, and regrettably, one man determined to teach her that lesson the worst way possible. The day it started, I was in the back room counting inventory. The buzz of the refrigerator unit was the only sound. It was a sluggish Tuesday. Languid as a funeral, the kind of shift where even the automatic doors seemed bored. I overheard Lena conversing with a customer. He had a low voice, the kind you hear from someone who constantly clears their throat. Yeah, he said. So, I've been getting this rash on my upper thigh, like way high up. It's super itchy. I didn't think much of it. Customers say crazy stuff all the time. But then, he added, I took some shots. Didn't want to, you know, take my pants down in public. Mind taking a look? My head sprang up. No. You don't show a 19-year-old pictures of your thigh rash. Lena, sweet and too trusting, said softly. Yeah, sure, if it helps. I stepped out to intervene. But by the time I reached the counter, the man had already put his phone in her hands. He looked ordinary enough. Late 40s, faded baseball cap, cheap windbreaker. Someone you wouldn't look twice at. I recognized him vaguely. He'd picked up prescriptions with his wife before. Lena frowned at the photo, then gave the polite customer service laugh. Okay, yeah, looks like maybe an allergic reaction. Something like dermatitis. You can try an antihistamine cream. We keep it on aisle 3, bottom shelf. The guy nodded like she'd just saved his life. Thank you. Seriously. Appreciate your help. He left. Not a big deal yet. Lena went back to work. I didn't want to embarrass her in front of customers, so I told myself I'd talk to her later, but then I forgot. Long day. Short memory happens. 1 week later, the storm rolled back in. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was verifying a prescription for amoxicillin when I heard Lena's voice stiffen. Oh, another photo. Okay. I glanced over. The man was back. His smile was a little too enthusiastic, a little too comfortable. He held out his phone again. This one's worse, he said. Thought you should see. This time I stepped out immediately, but again, he was faster. He handed her the phone before I could reach them. I noticed Lena's face turn the color of a tomato. She blinked repeatedly, trying to seem professional, but her jaw clenched in a way that made my stomach twist. Okay. She muttered quietly. It looks like the rash spread a bit. Yeah, he said. Crazy, right. He wasn't even looking at the screen. He was watching her watch it. She swallowed. You could try a stronger cream. We have hydrocortisone with aloe. That might help. He thanked her again, then left. I waited until he was gone before I approached. You okay? I asked. She nodded too fast. Yeah, absolutely. Just horrible rash images. We see worse. Did he show you anything inappropriate? She bit her lip. I think it was just an accidental angle. You know how iPhones crop weird. I didn't believe that, but she clearly wasn't ready to talk. I didn't push it. I wish I had. 2 weeks later, it escalated. I was stalking controlled substances in the cage when I heard Lena's voice crack. Just a hair, but enough to freeze my blood. Sir, I don't think you need to show me. Oh, come on, he responded, chuckling. It's nothing you haven't seen before. That was all I needed. I stepped out fast. He held out the phone to her again. But this time I saw it clear as day. And it wasn't a thigh rash, not even close. Lena's face was beet red. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. You good? I said firmly, stepping up beside her. She said nothing. Her eyes were shiny, panicked. The man turned to me, startled. He wasn't expecting company. Oh, hey, he said with a fake laugh. Didn't mean anything weird. Just a medical question. You're comfortable showing her, I said, holding his gaze. But you don't want to show me, he stuttered. She's the one I talked to previously. This is a drugstore, I replied. Medical issues should be shown to qualified pharmacists, not a 19-year-old clerk. He shut down quickly. His stance shrank. His eyes darted around like he was looking for exits. Lena murmured, I'm fine. It's okay. But it wasn't, not even close. He muttered a quick excuse, grabbed a bottle of cough syrup, then hurled it at the counter. It exploded like a sticky purple grenade. Then he bolted for the door. Customers screamed. Lena flinched so violently she dropped her scanner. The guy sprinted out like he thought cough syrup was some kind of smoke bomb. We called the police immediately. Management arrived within minutes. CCTV footage had everything, every inch of it. I sat with Lena in the break room afterward. She kept wringing her hands, whispering. I thought I was overreacting. I didn't know how to tell him to stop without getting in trouble. You did nothing wrong. I told her you were harassed. That wasn't accidental. That man knew exactly what he was doing. She choked back tears. I just didn't want to make a scene. And he kept acting like it was innocent. Like I'd be stupid to assume otherwise. That's what creeps do. I said softly. They hide behind innocence until you stop giving them space to hide. The cops later explained that the explicit photos might have been hard to prosecute. He could claim accidental exposure, camera angle, whatever, but smashing store property, intent, documented, on camera. And the best part, his wife answered the door when officers came to speak with him. She learnt everything that night. By the next morning, he was facing charges, property destruction and disorderly conduct, and police flagged the photo pattern as predatory, adding him to the offender registry. Not exactly the medical outcome he'd hoped for. Lena stayed with us another year. She grew stronger, more confident, more careful, but not scared. One day she told me, "You know, you kind of saved me that day." "No," I said. "You rescued yourself. I just backed you up." She smiled. "Well, thanks for backing loud." It's humorous. People believe that retail employees are inattentive, invisible, and helpless. But we're not. Everything is visible to us. And when someone crosses a queue, we don't forget. We never forget. Someone crosses a queue. We don't forget. We never forget.